The past, present, and future of mental institutions. Here you can see that people were treated as
for the
prisoners.
mentally retarded, and I think particularly at Willowbrook that we have a situation that borders on a snake pit, and that the children live in filth, that many of our fellow citizens are suffering tremendously because lack of attention, lack of imagination, lack of adequate manpower.
It's been more than 6 years since Robert Kennedy walked out of one of the wards here at Willowbrook and told newsmen of the horror he'd seen inside. He pleaded then for an overhaul of a system that allowed retarded children to live in a snake pit. But that was way back in 1965, and somehow we'd all forgotten. I first heard of this big place with the pretty-sounding name because of a call I received from a member of the Willowbrook staff, a Dr. Michael Wilkins. The doctor told me he'd just been fired because he'd been urging parents with children in one of the buildings, building number 6, to organize so they could more effectively demand improved conditions for their children. The doctor invited me to see the conditions he was talking about, so unannounced and unexpected by the school administration, we toured building number 6. The doctor had warned me that it would be bad. It was horrible. There was one attendant for perhaps 50 severely and profoundly retarded children.
The ones that we saw were the most severely and profoundly retarded. There are thousands there like that, not going to school, sitting on the ward all day, not being talked to by anyone, only 1 or 2 or 3 people to take care of 70 people on the ward, sharing the same toilet, contracting the same diseases.
Can the children be trained?
Yes, every child can be trained. You know, these kids, there's no effort. We don't know what these kids are capable of doing.
And I think your priorities are mixed up in New York in terms of serving the retarded. Your top investment is in institutions. Our top investment is in the Department of Education and in providing a program for the child while he's at home in terms of day care. For example, these kids can go to school at age 3 years, so they start at very young, and that helps a great deal for parents. And when parents are actively encouraged to keep their child at home, they do so because they know they can have the help of regional centers or public schools or the health department in terms of services, etc.
What we need is a new approach. We have to change the way we care for our mentally retarded. We ask for change, we demand change. What you've seen here just doesn't have to be this way.
I think all of us are at fault, and I think it's just it's long overdue that something be done about it.
The present of mental institutions.
It is the measure of any society, how it treats its most vulnerable. You might think dingy institutions, people locked away in inhumane conditions from birth until death, would be a relic of the past. But our Ann Curry discovered it is all too real in the world in which we live. And Ann is bringing us some exclusive images this morning. Ann.
That's right, Meredith. In fact, these pictures are hard to watch, but very important to see. Our NBC News team got unprecedented access to mental institutions in Serbia where people, including children with conditions like cerebral palsy and Down syndrome, are forced to live their entire lives. One human rights organization calls it inhumane and torture. Belgrade today is a city of colorful markets, thriving plazas, and renewed hope. Yet the remnants of war are still evident. And beyond the historic city, there is another remnant of Serbia's past that has remained unchanged and unseen for decades. It is what some call the country's dark secret, its mental institutions. Thousands of adults and children are systematically warehoused in decaying buildings, languishing in the same stark rooms and metal cribs day after day. Heavy medication is common. Therapy is rare.
People are just prisoners in these cribs and these beds. We found people being tied up, not for 10 minutes, but hours.
A report just released by Washington-based Mental Disability Rights International calls the conditions beyond cruel and inhuman.
It's torture.
Torture?
Torture.
You're saying what is happening in the institutions for the disabled in Serbia amounts to torture?
Yes. Yes.
In this former communist country, where disabilities have long caused shame, doctors commonly advise parents to put mentally disabled newborns in remote, overcrowded government institutions. For most, it is a life sentence.
So this is the room where the most severe cases are kept?
NBC News gained unprecedented access to some of these institutions. What we found in some was deeply disturbing. Full-grown young men crammed into cribs. A shower room where groups of adults are hosed down. Stick-thin children left alone, some with bodies contorted and atrophied from years of neglect. This little boy was tied to his crib early one morning and was still tied up later that afternoon. Some boys and girls in these conditions simply stop growing.
This is a 21-year-old boy who's never been let out.
His body seems frozen. Katerina is 9. She has Down syndrome.
Oh, you don't want to let go of my finger, do you?
The staff told us that tiny Jasmina is actually 15 years old.
This is called growth retardation or failure to thrive.
Explain that to me.
The brain produces a hormone that allows you to grow, and the brain doesn't produce that hormone when you're under such severe conditions of deprivation. A classic sign of child neglect is kids who don't grow.
We showed some of our footage to Serbia's new social policy minister, Rasim Ljajic.
You see children left in beds, so long their legs are atrophying, and the children are tied down. Are these conditions, in your mind, humane?
These conditions are far from humane, far from humane.
So you agree that it is hurting the children, hurting these people with disabilities to be in these institutions?
Absolutely. Of course. This is a situation that we inherited, that came into our hands, and we have to change it.
But with a severe shortage of government money and trained staff, he acknowledges that change will come slowly.
Years?
Sadly, years, yes.
In the meantime, the mentally disabled here know little of the world beyond the walls and bars of institutions, where days and lives pass unnoticed.
Prisoners are often put in straitjackets so that they cannot hurt themselves when really they are at little such danger. This is a stereotype. While nobody knows the true future of mental institutions, we must hope that the future is brighter than the present and the past. We must continue to make strives towards making these people's lives better. Oftentimes, all these people really need is a friend to help them get through their troubles, and this should be all we need to use from now on.